So for 15 years, you've been in and out of hospital.
And the tumour's there, and there's only probably a couple of millimetres between living or potentially hearing the words that that's the end.
I mean, how do you face cancer and truly live?
And then the nurse said, well, let's prepare for end of life. 6 years on the British rowing team, which then led into 7 years on the British cycling team. But I wasn't saving lives.
Are you an angel?
I wouldn't have thought so. I think I've just lived a life.
Welcome to the Business Growth Podcast, powered by ActionCOACH UK, the world #1 in business coaching. Since 1993, we've helped thousands of business owners and entrepreneurs worldwide smash through their limits and achieve extraordinary results. This is more than a podcast, it's your blueprint for success. So grab a pen and paper, take notes, and make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell for weekly growth insights. Let's do this.
ActionCOACH, the help you need to grow your business. I've just been with somebody that says this: when I got cancer, I became a human being. Courage, curiosity, compassion, optimism. Wherever you are, be where your feet are. That's the big takeaway from today. Don't wait to be diagnosed by cancer to become a better human being. Listen to this podcast and share it with as many people as you can in the company of the great David Smith, and become a better human being.
This episode is sponsored by Sedulo, funding experts here to help. Sedulo's experienced banking and finance specialists are here to help you secure new finance or refinance existing facilities to achieve favourable terms. Now back to the podcast.
And I've had 7 surgeries, 2 rounds of radiotherapy. It's 15 years in hospital now, which kind of feels like it's been... Like, I try not to be defined by that, but it's become a big part of my life. And I sit and learn. I think, well, where have I learned the most in life to become the human I've become? And a lot of it is walking that very thin line between the vulnerability of taking the last breath to just functioning daily. And what does functioning daily look like for everybody?
I mean, how do you face cancer and truly live?
So there's a really interesting guy called Dr. Ranil Chundy, and I always go to his explanation for this because I feel that he's met more people with cancer than I have. And certainly to speak to and to tell them this is it. And he said, 95% of the people that he's diagnosed do really well. He says he's shaken 10,000 hands, operated on thousands of brains, and they're all dead now. But they did well at the end. They didn't fall apart. They had their cry, they have their emotional breakdown. Some people do really badly because it can be really nasty, but there is no coping strategy for it. You can do all the gratitude journals, the breathing, you can do everything, but you will still go on the emotional roller coaster of approaching that last breath. And I always think there's two really important breaths in life. First breath you take, and the last time you exhale. Because the first thing you do is inhale, and the last thing you'll do is exhale. And then everything just shuts down. All the electricity stops, the heart stops, the brain stops, kidneys stop, liver stops, everything just stops. And when you get told you have cancer, then it's like someone's turned the sand timer on, and for one of the very first times for a lot of people, they'll be like, I'm going to die. And you're like, wow, okay, might only be 16, you might only be 8, you might be 80. You don't know where you're going to be on that journey.
You've taken me to a place now of appreciation, almost a sinking feeling in my emotions. Actually, you've taken me to a place now where it's not quite out of body experience, but it is an appreciation of everything, and very, very self-aware. When you said 95% do well, and then you explained it, they have a little bit of a breakdown, but they do well.
They do well. They generally, and when I heard Dr. Ranil Chundy say that, and I actually heard him say it on with Jake and Dave on the High Performance, And I thought to myself, I thought of all the times I've sat in hospital, all the times I've sat in ICU, all the times I've been in neuro wards. If there's rough times, but on the whole, we're all kind of joking and smiling, and there's like a jovial sort of like, wow, we're in the real shit here. but it brings perspective into the things that are really important in life: your friends, your families, your memories, your experiences. You don't take your TV to hospital. You don't take your cars to hospital. You become a human being rather than a human doing. And because you're all in the same hospital gown, you're in this really super vulnerable place with people that you've never met before, and you're in their most vulnerable place as well. So it's like almost dropping into someone's living room and just hanging out in their living room. And I've like all sorts of people. I've had major CEOs from the city of London who have had a stroke, and they're wandering around the hospital room naked, trying to steal my chocolate from my drawer and asking what am I doing in their house. So I've seen the real seriousness of the diagnoses, but then I've also seen the kind of sweet part of just being a human being rather than a human doing, and not being defined by what you have, but by who you are. And it's a really nice, innocent moment to be in if your self-awareness is high enough to be able to go, wow, this is not just a sad moment, but a really beautiful moment on this whole life experience, where sometimes we're just constantly bombarded with marketing telling us that we need all these other things to make us happy, but actually the number one thing that I really want is my health. And so when I sit and I listen to what Dr. Ramachandran said, I look at all the radiotherapy rooms, all the ICU rooms, I'm like, wow, yeah, there's a gift in the giving of that diagnosis. And it's a hard one. Not everyone manages it to the point where they leave and go, oh wow, that's taught me a lot. And I thought I did the first time, second time, third time, fourth time, like fast forward 15 years, and I'm like, oh, now I see that I was actually more human doing, because I thought I was going to be defined by what I did rather than who I was.
It's not where you are, it's who you are.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful. 5 times you've had it. I mean, how do you, it keeps coming back?
Stubborn
Little bugger.
Yeah, it does. And I thought when I first had it, I thought it would just go away and that would be it. And then it came back 4 years.
Are you still living with Optimism?
Yeah, I think I have to, because I think the danger of living between the choice of living with, I guess, like a learned helplessness that, well, what's the point? Which is very easy to go into sort of that nihilism, sort of like, well, there's no point doing anything, and the world is spinning at so many miles an hour, and we're just, what's the point of it all? Or I live and think, you know what? There may be a student somewhere in some remote university somewhere in the world who's studying my tumor genetic makeup. And out of nowhere in a few years, there's going to be a cure. And that's why I don't give up. That's why I get up every morning. I realize there's 18,400 seconds a day. If I get to 80, that's 4,000 weeks. And I'm like, okay, I've become so aware of how I show up all the time, my energy, everything from my smiles to my energies to, like, I love human beings. So I just speak to everybody. And that's why I'm not very good with names, because I never ask what anyone does. I'm like, well, if you're a nice person, tell me more about what makes you a nice person. I like to get to know good people, and what's your passions, what's your music, what books have you read, what's your principles, your values, who are you as the human being, not what you do as a human doing. And then if we get past all of that stuff, then it turns out that, oh, actually, I'm really interested in what you do as well. But you've built up this beautiful relationship that's based on first principles and values, not about, well, what can I get from you?
When you said that, I mean, that's hit home. When you first got diagnosed with cancer, well, not even when you first, because you've had it 5 times, but the statement, when you get diagnosed with cancer, you become a human being. And you kind of get out of the rat race there. That's the trap, isn't it? The human doing is the rat race, the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
So for 15 years, you've been in and out of hospital. It's been tough. But you know what? You've been a human being. You know, the rest of us that haven't been in hospital like that, we've been caught in this trap.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone needs to pay attention to this, what you're saying.
And I think it's like, so how can we still be in the mix, but be a human being in the mix?
How can we do that? Have you worked that out? Let's work it out now. Come on.
I'm trying. So I take a lot of, so I follow a guy called Michael Gervais, who's a sports psychologist. He worked at the Seattle Seahawks with Pete Carroll. And they often talk about what when Pete Carroll was at the Seattle Seahawks, they said their product, their output is football, but their whole philosophy for the team is relationships. We're going to build good relationships because that's where the magic happens. And it happens in the moment. So I live by this philosophy of be where your feet are.
Be where your feet are.
It's the only place you can be.
Be where your feet are.
And if you are present in the moment and you are fully immersed in the moment, and some sports psychologists will call it flow state, other people believe it's in the zone or whatever it may be. If you're fully present in the moment and you do your best work aligned with who you are as the human being, then the kind of doing will take care of itself.
You're very inspirational, you know. You're hitting me from all angles here. You know, there's a psychologist called Mihaly. He did the big thing on flow.
On flow, yeah.
But you mentioned learned helplessness. There's another psychologist called Martin Seligman.
Martin Seligman, yeah.
Yeah, so he wrote the book Learned Optimism.
Learned Optimism, yeah.
Which is the opposite of learned helplessness.
Yeah.
And actually, you are learned optimism.
Yeah.
You are learned optimism. Actually, no matter what happens, you've got this lens that you can look through. I really recommend that the listeners go and either research Learned Optimism or get that book. It's a bit of an exercise book that you basically assess yourself throughout the entire book.
Yeah.
And it is very, very powerful. It's hard not to be optimistic when you do that.
Yeah, I think for me, I think that when I studied sports psychology from the age of 5 or 6,
right?
Because I went to martial arts, I went to sport. I didn't realize before every karate session we did meditation to upregulate. Then after the session we downregulated. So that was all breathing, it was all mindfulness, it was emotional regulation. And then in 2016 when I was paralyzed, somebody gave me Man's Search for Meaning. So I read Man's Search for Meaning and I was like, interesting. And at that point I couldn't move anything on my left side. And the guy said to me, "You've got a lot to be grateful for." I was like, "What's that?" And he says, "Well, you have your right side."
Yeah.
And I thought, interesting. He said, just ponder on that thought and see where it takes you.
Read the book.
Read the book.
Have you been to Auschwitz?
I have actually. Yes, I have. Have
you sat in the concentration camp?
Yeah, and I've been through it all. And at the time, I think all of these things were like my training, and I wasn't fully aware because I wasn't injured at that point. I hadn't experienced cancer at that point, so my journey was about to start not long after that trip. But then that Man's Search for Meaning took me to Martin Seligman, which took me to a master's in neuroscience with a heavy basis on positive psychology, to a diploma in neuroscience. I started throwing myself all into philosophy, psychology, to the point where I stopped getting invited to parties because all I wanted to talk about was the real heavy stuff. But I realized, I was like, that's my toolkit. It's my toolkit. And then I was watching people die and take their final breaths in the wards around me and in the beds next to me. And I was like...
Did you ever see the book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying?
No, I've not actually, no.
It's amazing. It's based on research. And, basically, you have to have less than 24 hours to live, and they'll come and ask you your biggest regrets. Mm-hmm. So that could be for people with a terminal illness. It could be if you've been in a horrific car accident, you're literally about to take your last exhale, like you've said. It could be that you're old age. So, but a whole host of people. And they asked them the biggest regrets, and they found out what the 5 biggest regrets are. They found them out. And some of them you've nailed already, like the human being. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings and be who I am.
Yeah.
You know, and live true to myself. I wish I'd let myself be happier. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. You know, be where your feet are.
Yeah. And be where your feet are encompasses all of that
It
stuff.
does.
It really
Present.
encompasses being in the present moment.
There's only one time.
Yeah, and it is the present moment. But yet the brain pulls you to the past and to the future.
Be it. We're in the company of a great psychologist here.
No,
guys.
not at all. Just a student.
You know the movie Kung Fu Panda?
Yes.
Yesterday is history and tomorrow's a mystery, but today's a gift. And that's why they call it the present.
Yeah, and it is a gift. And it's truly a gift. And I live a lot of time in Kingston, in Jamaica, so I meet a lot of Rastafarians, and they're such interesting characters because they're always like, David, every day is a blessing and a lesson.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know that just flows off their tongues, but I was like, wow, what if I undress that, what does that really mean? And again, it's about being in the moment.
Blessing. And my dad always said to me, every day you wake up, James, it's a good day.
It's a good day. It is, right?
And guess what? As you've told everybody earlier on, there's 18,400 seconds in a day, and time unfolds second by second.
Always.
How many of those seconds do you enjoy? Because you're in a lot of pain, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in a lot of pain. I'm in pain now. If you're watching this video, you'll see my neck is constantly moving. I'm constantly trying to fidget and sort of find like calm.
And feel free to like say I'm being rude or anything like that. But
No.
you know, I watched you sit down earlier on, and your left arm is paralysed.
Yeah.
And it was a bit surreal me watching it, to be honest, because it was just flopping around. It sounds disrespectful what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
But I just want the audience to, I mean, just pick your arm up.
Yeah. It's just dead.
It's just dead.
It's dead. Or it's alive, but it doesn't move.
Yeah, so when you sat down originally, it was there, and you just had to pick it up like that, and just appreciating things. I mean, the moment with you here, and
but even I corrected myself there because I said it's dead. It's not dead, and it's just that constant. Like I realized there's like knowledge, and then there's wisdom, and then there's this, I guess, like this utopia that we all would love to get to. And even as I said it there right now, I said, actually, no, it's not dead. It's still alive. There's still blood flowing through it. It still doesn't move, but it's still there.
And you don't feel pain.
Not in the hand. I don't feel the arm at
and
all.
You keep burning yourself.
Yeah, I keep burning myself. So it's like this. I feel like everything in life there's like messages everywhere. And we can either just go through life in the matrix and not be aware of anything, where sometimes I think, well, that was quite fun when I was living like that. But then also I think, well, I have this like level of self-awareness now around my own mortality, around my life and everyone else's life. And I realize that everybody's going through something of some sort. And I thought, wow, if I can leave the house every morning with a level of courage, curiosity and compassion, then I can hold those three principles in any moment I'm in.
I wonder if our listeners can do that.
It's challenging.
Leave the house every morning with courage, curiosity and compassion.
Yeah.
You live your life in 6-month windows.
Sometimes 3. It's 3 months at the moment.
Okay, so just tell us what that means.
Yeah, so the tumour that's growing in me grows inside my spinal cord, right where the Adam's apple is, basically. So it's high up, and if you damage anything in your spinal cord, it impacts the whole body. It's like the crux of the whole system. And I've had my neck cut open 7 times, from the front, through the back, through the side, everything. And now the tumour, it's these 2 genes called STAT6-NAB2 fusion gene, and they're separate and they join together, pass through border control, and that's the start of a growth. And then it becomes 2, 3, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where it'll just cut off everything, and I would slowly become paralysed from the neck down and die. So that needs to be monitored, and the best way to monitor that is through MRIs. So I go in every 3 months, have an MRI. Takes about 3 to 4 weeks to get all of the readings from that MRI, and the tumour's there, and there's only probably a couple of millimetres, and the couple of millimetres is between me living, having surgery, or potentially hearing the words that that's the end. And then I'm like, well, what will the end look like for me? Will it be similar to a sort of MND type thing where my body just stops slowly working because the nerves are no longer traveling? What will that be like? And that's torturous to think of that, because I'm like, wow, that's going to hurt. So I'm like, okay, go back to where my feet are, be in the moment. And I'm like, right, so I have my scan today. I know in 3 to 4 weeks I'll get the results. But between now and those 3 to 4 weeks, I can go and play golf, I can go skiing, I can go to the gym, I can go and read books, I can do talks, I can show up to those 18,400 seconds when I'm awake and try and live by my principles and my values, just to try and make the world a better place. And I know that there's a lot of different personalities. There's always going to be struggles. Since the very first Homo sapiens 230,000 years ago, there's always been battles and power struggles. But I'm like, how can I make my pool a better pool, which then goes into another pool and into another pool and into another pool, and we can slowly have good conversations and just genuinely try and make the world a nicer place to live in. So I get every 3 months, I'll sit down, and my oncologist now just does thumbs up or thumbs down. Thankfully, it's only been thumbs up for the last year, but I know one day it'll be thumbs down. And I know at that point, if I've lived completely in alignment with my values, then I'll be ready for whatever news comes my way.
I will have lived completely in line with my values. And because of that, I'm ready for anything that comes at me.
Yeah, basically.
That's essentially what you just said.
Yeah.
I wonder what the business leaders, the entrepreneurs, the ambitious people listening and watching this now, what can they learn from your situation?
I think the first thing is, because I wrestle with this, I sit and I listen to all great conversations and try to unpick maybe the mind of Brian Cox or, like a sports psychologist or Martin Seligman and all these different things, go all the way up to Stoicism and stuff. And I think, I want driven people. I want people who are bordering on almost kind of psychopathic tendencies, who are going to get up at 5 a.m. They're going to go and push the world to a place that I couldn't take it to, because within that we might find cures for cancer, we might find cures for paralysis, for MMD, for dementia, all of these great things that have caused so much heartache to humans. We might actually find cures for these things. So I'm like, that's fantastic, and I want you to still be driven, and I want you to still do all your stuff. But I think one of the things that I always come back to is having a high level of self-awareness, knowing who you are as a person, what your principles are. A lot of the top psychologists and that will say, from the age of 0 to 7, you're getting that initial programming, and then you go off and do all your different schooling, and you'll get different programs from different teachers, from sports coaches, from music teachers. Then you'll have your friends, and then you end up with this whole belief system. But it's to know that it is just a belief system. It's not always fact. And to understand that your perspective of the world is not always exactly what's happening. So to be able to step away from it all and go, well, okay, I know my belief system, but I'm interested to hear your belief system, and where did that come from? And I would be super curious to understand more about you as the human being and the human doing, to see genuinely what makes you up as a person. And what I realized when I first started reading psychology and studying psychology, I just wanted to tell everyone what I'd read. But I realized that, okay, that's a level of knowledge, but not real wisdom. The real wisdom is asking questions about how did somebody get to where they got to, and what was that environment, and what was that path like for them to walk.
Self-awareness, you mentioned this in that, what you just said. And we're living in an intelligence age now. AI's come.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it's doing the thinking for us.
Yeah.
And we've gone from an information age where there's literally too much information. Everyone's overwhelmed. What should I do? What should I listen to now machines can think for us. All right. They can literally, what should I do with this email? It'll come up with it. It's like you don't even have to think about it anymore. It's that good, is AI. It's stopping us being overwhelmed. But what, in my opinion, it's magnified the importance of EQ.
Yes, massively.
And part of EQ is self-awareness.
Yeah.
Is that what you want to change in this world, self-awareness?
Yeah, because I think that's the next huge thing. And I've listened to lots of tech people speak over the last sort of year, especially when ChatGPT first started to come on. I kept seeing all my journalist friends and everyone going on about this, and I was like, oh, that'll never come around. And then the next minute I've downloaded the app and I'm using it and stuff, and I'm like, wow, okay, now it kind of runs a lot of my medical questions for me. But very early on, I kept hearing a lot of the more emotionally intelligent guys say the super key tool for the next 10 to 15, 20 years is developing people's emotional intelligence.
Of course it is. I mean, if everyone listening right now, because I'm bothered about the listeners right now.
Yeah.
You know, both you and I have got to encourage them to read books on emotional intelligence, study these kind of people, become like that, look who's the best at it, really develop that muscle, because that's going to make the difference in people. You know, in my opinion, it used to be called personal development.
Yeah.
I actually think the next phase is human development.
Human development, yeah. Because I think we've, in the last sort of 10 to 15, 20 years, we've almost gone away from the human being to more human doing, and we're all very robotic. Everything's getting done for us. Or literally everything. Our cars tell us when they need petrol, they need brake fluid. Your left wheel is going down, it needs this. And that's removed a lot of our ability to almost have critical thinking, to be able to think about our thinking, and then actually, okay, who's showing up to all of these seconds each day? What are my principles? And I often say to people, you know, if I had to put you in the corner and say, hey, like, give me your top 3 principles right now, a lot of people would go, I have no idea. I just function. But you're functioning on something, so let's find out what that is you're functioning on. And you will have strengths and you will have weaknesses, and depending on what your role and job is going to be in the world, one of the key ingredients is got to be able to have a relationship.
Yeah, well, look, relationships. Let me just mention that. There's 2 things. I'm just making a note of this. So there was a book that was written probably 100 years ago now by Dale Carnegie.
Yeah.
How to Win Friends and Influence People. And basically, one of Dale Carnegie's principles or philosophies, which he doesn't say in these words in that book, but his principles in all of his stuff does cover this. The secret to happiness is not fame or fortune. The secret to happiness is your relationships with the people that matter most in your life. Develop those deep, meaningful, long-lasting relationships. That's it. That's happiness.
Yeah, that is.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's relationships. That's all happiness is.
Yeah.
But the other thing that you've caused me to reflect on is being present, because I can be present doing the stuff.
Yes.
But then there's reflection. There's another author called Keith Cunningham. He's a strategist, a business strategist, incredible in the field of finance. Yeah. But he wrote a book which is not about finance. He wrote loads of books on finance. And he wrote one that's not about finance, and it's called The Road Less Stupid. It's a beautiful title. The Road Less. And he introduced this notion of thinking time, me time, self-reflection time. And I always use this analogy. Why does a car have brakes? And a lot of people think a car has brakes to slow down, but a car's brakes to speed up. Imagine if the car didn't have brakes, the driver wouldn't go very fast.
Yeah.
So the brakes actually slow you down. So where does self-reflection fit in under self-awareness?
I think so. For me, it's journaling, and like, it's much better to write it down. I do it. The power of actually physically taking a pen and writing stuff down. There's a ton of neuroscience behind the importance of that. But what I try to do when I'm on top of my stuff, I'm just a student of life, trying to be a better human being. You know, I want to be more courageous, more compassionate, more kind, more mindful, which all brings me back to being where my feet are. And I think if I sit down to journal and I write down 3 things that went well, 3 things that didn't go down well, and what was the behaviors and who showed up as the human being. And was it more human doing? Was I more reactive? Was I maybe a bit more angry? Or was I very much in control of any thought, feeling, and emotion and behavior that left my body? And I realized it's around about 90 seconds for that emotion to pass through my body. So I have the thought, it creates a feeling which is internal, then that becomes an emotion which is external, which leads to a behavior which becomes my habit, and it becomes ultimately who I am. And I'm in control of that. Now, that's super hard work because I know my tripwires in life. And when I go into those tripwires, I go to human doing, and all those personality traits from my dad, my mum, my teachers, everyone comes flying out to the party. And I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't like how David showed up there. I don't think that's who I want to be. So I need to go away and work on that. And that might be mindfulness, it might be meditation, it might be just doing some coaching or some therapy or whatever it may be. It's got to be something that makes me more courageous, more compassionate, more kind, and more able to sit in the moment and just allow those emotions to pass through.
Courageous, curious, compassion, Your personality has definitely got optimism in it. There is no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned a few things there, which is, your thinking leads to your feeling. It passes through your 90 seconds, you said. On the spectrum of personality development, there's a few other things. You probably know some of this. So what you think dictates how you feel a little bit, and there's a little bit of a loop that kind of carries on there. But if that feeling hangs around, if you're anxious, negative, or if even optimism, if the feeling of optimism hangs around, it begins to affect your mood. So you can have an optimistic mood, or you could have a pessimistic mood. So a mood is much deeper than, who is it? What was it? McNair, he was a psychologist, profile of mood states, amazing psychologist. So I think that was 67 of all things, 1967, proven thousands of times exercise increases positive mood state.
Yep.
So you think something, you feel something. If that feeling hangs around for a long time, the emotion, for more than 90 seconds for today, if it hangs around for a few days, you begin to affect your mood. But if the mood hangs around for a few weeks, like if you've got a bit of an anxious mood, or there's 3,600 different emotions, so there's a lot.
There's a lot.
What it begins to do is it affects something deeper than your mood, which is called your temperament.
Yeah.
And if your temperament, you start becoming an aggressive person or an anxious person or this sort of thing, what happens then, if that hangs around without you going back to the starting point over here, the thoughts, it begins to impact your personality.
Hugely.
So what I'm seeing with you unfolding is optimism has gone all the way through that.
Yeah.
You've got it. Your personality is courageous, compassionate, kind, optimistic.
Yeah.
You've got it.
Which didn't make me the best competitor in the world of competitive sport. But what it did do is it made me a real good listener and a really good teammate. And I remember going back to when I was a kid growing up in a village, and the coach who coached us sport at that time says, I want you to be able to win in a humble way, but I want you to lose in a way that dignifies who you are as a human being. Always shake the opponent's hands, always look people in the eyes, always give people time. And I thought, wow, that's super important, because everyone's always looking for a gift. And I'm like, well, no, your gift is my time. Like, I'm not going to bring you a bunch of stuff and give you all this nice stuff. I'm going to sit with you and we can have a conversation. And it's funny now, because as I go through life, I see a lot of my friends losing the ability to communicate and just have a conversation, because they're on their phones and they're sitting just scrolling after thing after thing after thing. And I'm like, there's so much going on in the world right now. We could just choose a topic and discuss it for like an hour. And they look up from their phone and go, what's the point in that? And then they go back there on their phone. And I'm like, what? I feel like I'm losing like really valuable time right now. And though I scroll on phone as well, but I'm like, look, I'm with you at the moment. Let's use this time really wise, because I'm not going to be home for another year. And they don't see it. And I'm thinking, wow, is that a blessing or a curse not to see it? Because I know what it's like to sit outside an oncology ward surrounded by 50 other people.
What is it like?
Because I'm a really sensitive person, so I pick up on all the different energies, and I look at people and I smile, and I know a smile can save a life. I know even a good morning can change somebody's whole day, because it goes back to that temperament. It starts to shift different neurochemicals. And I also know there's a bunch of research around people who have high levels of optimism actually living longer in like extreme conditions. They will live longer. And I can't pull up the study to quote that, but I know it definitely exists in some neuroscience journals. I've read it. And I think when I sit on the oncology wards, for me, I'm like, well, I can't change anyone in here, but I can smile and I can have a little nod and just like a little like, hey, I feel you. Even coming today on the train, there was somebody with a similar disability to me that fell through the train doors, and I tried to help them. And I was purposely looking right at his eyes. We didn't speak. I just went, I know what it's like. I've noticed your AFO in your foot. I can see you've probably had a stroke, some form of brain stroke or spinal stroke or something. I can see we have a lot of similar physical elements. So I know how hard it is for you to come out here today. Now, I don't know if he had the same mindset, but I wanted to smile at him to say, hey, like, you're not alone.
Are you an angel?
I wouldn't have thought so. I think I've just lived a life, and somewhere along on this path, that I was just given this gift of awareness, and I don't know where from or why.
When did you wake up with it?
I think I've always had it. I've always had
When
it.
did you realise you had it?
I'm constantly learning that I think I have something different to a lot of other people.
You know, when you said when he fell over,
Yeah.
I looked into his eyes, and honestly, since that moment, whether it's just NLP, what you're doing on me, I know you're a psychologist. I found myself sort of piercing into your eyes, and I'm kind of feeling your emotions, and I'm aware of the. Have you come across Rob Rotella?
I don't think I have, actually. No.
He's an incredible psychologist. He operates in the world of sport. He's won about 65 majors.
Oh, wow. Okay.
His golfers have that he coaches. He's the psychologist behind the scenes.
Yeah. Is he the guy who goes, see the shot, take the shot? I don't know if that's him. I need to look him up. I'm going to look him up, yeah.
Well, he's pretty good. He's working with Rory McIlroy at the moment. But he's the behind-the-scenes man that a lot of people don't know. I mean, he's wrote a lot of books. One of his books is called How to Think Like a Champion.
Yes. I know exactly who you're speaking about. Yeah.
And chapter 1 in that book is Optimism. Chapter 1 is basically you. It is you.
Yeah.
But maybe you got it from Seligman.
Or
if you studied him.
Yeah, or I got it from growing up in a pub in the north of Scotland.
In Aviemore.
In Aviemore. I grew up in a pub, so I seen everything playing out. And I seen a bunch of Highlanders all live and all this stuff unravel. And I just went on this like journey through life. And I think I'm trying to think sometimes, would I have learned all this if I hadn't had the insight into my own death? Probably not. I might have known it. I might not have known it. I might never have questioned it. I might have just gone and been a ski coach or a guide or whatever. But I look and think, wow, who I've become today and who I was on that first journey into surgery, they're like totally different people. And I try to think of different sports, and I think it's kind of maybe like a boxer. You come out in round 1, you're a different boxer in round 12. You can't box the same in round 12 as you did in round 1. And the strategy's different, everything's different, the temperament's different, everything's different. But you have to train like you're going to go 30 rounds, just in case the whole fight goes to full 12 rounds. You need to be fit enough to go again and go again and go again and to be able to get up and go again. And I'm thinking, is that nurture nature? Is that something that I learned from being punched in the face as a 14-year-old kid in a karate dojo in Aberdeen? Or is it something that just came from, I don't know, maybe from life? And then when I started reading positive psychology and starting to put all the pieces together and go, I've kind of been doing this a long time, but I didn't really fully understand it.
Who have you learned from the most?
Everybody.
Every situation.
Everyone. Every human being. Every person.
What are some of your routines that you've got? That, daily routines, rituals?
Be disciplined.
About in what?
Everything. Everything I do, realise that it's be where my feet are. It's be in the moment.
Right. So that takes discipline, yes.
Yeah.
But what else are you disciplined at?
My eating, my meditations, my nutrition, my fitness, my reaching out to friends.
Do you ever have any moments of weakness?
Yeah, all the time. All of the time there's moments of weakness because there's everything around me. There's chocolate everywhere. I had some chocolate cookies were coming in here.
You had some strawberries as well.
Yeah, I had some strawberries as well. But I'm like, I'm not perfect. I make tons of mistakes, but I'm kind and compassionate with myself. And if I think, well, okay, I maybe shouldn't have eaten the whole box of hot chocolate cookies, but they made me feel really good. And after that, I had more time and more compassion for a friend. So I don't get it right that much, but I try. Like when I left the house this morning, I'd just come back from Scotland, and I have this analogy of a chair, and every leg is a super important thing that I'm really passionate about. So one of my legs is sport and movement. One leg is about being in nature. The other leg is being around good people. And the other leg is about trying to make a difference to the world and the community I'm in. If I've got those 4 things in my life every week, then I can sit on that chair and I can take whatever's coming my way. And that's based on the floor, which is based on my first principles of all determination, curiosity, compassion, all the stuff I've written about and spoke about. you start taking those legs away, then my inner emotions start to become more like the Scottish weather. So then I start to struggle, I get a little bit angry, my energy's different. And I came out today, and I don't normally use the tube, and I thought, I'm going to go on the tube today. And I was full of this energy, and people were smiling at me, people were looking. I was like, morning, how are you today? And I had this, like, there was just this energy around, and I thought, this is really nice. I've actually really enjoyed it, and I'm having a really good day. And I was like, why is that? What's changed? And I realised it was nothing had changed around me. London was still London. It was my inner world had changed and shifted.
You got solid 4 legs.
Yeah, solid 4 legs, and I've had them. I've been golfing every day.
What a beautiful analogy or metaphor that you've just painted for us all. What are your 4 legs?
Yeah.
What are they?
Yeah, and
I think you've defined yours.
Yeah.
There's power in that. And the way that you articulate it so vulnerably, like you're not perfect, but your energy's right when you know that those legs are there.
Yeah, because they're based on stuff that I love. And you can unwrap each of them. Okay, so what's so important about people? Well, we're relationship people. Humans need humans. And if you go to the blue zones, you'll find the people who live the longest have good communities, good spirits.
Amazing that. I mean, that program on Blue Zones.
Yeah, huge, right?
2 things. The 2 biggest things. The community. So Blue Zones, for the listeners, is there's pockets around the world where literally people live to 100. They're literally...
Yeah.
Randomly in all of these places. There's a place in California that,
there is.
That just randomly and what's going on in those places, 2 big things. Number 1 is this community.
Yeah.
Well, there's 3 things: community, friendship, and purpose.
Yeah, those 3 things. And those 3 things, you could argue, are key to optimism. And the people who have those 3 things will usually be very optimistic about a very fulfilling life.
Yeah, I think I've got those 3 things. I think you've got those 3 things.
You definitely got them.
But I'm finding myself wanting to hang around you a lot, you know, which is the first time we've met. But this guy, honestly, you've got the vibe. Self-awareness. Let's just go back there on EQ for a second. And there's Jim Collins. He wrote the book Good to Great, and he said a level 5 leader is someone that leads with humility and amazing professional will. So personal humility and professional will. That's what you would call a level 5 leader. Humility is part of EQ, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's part of emotional intelligence. Yeah. And how have you developed your humbleness?
I think probably from being completely leveled. And what I mean by that is when I was growing up, I grew really quickly tall. I was like 6'4", maybe 15, but I was like a big string, and everyone had to tell me that I was skinny, and like that hurt me at the time. So I became obsessed with trying to build muscle because I thought that would be the answer to everything. Where actually, I went into my first surgery and lost it all. I went in at 105 kilos, and after a month, I was 65 kilos. So I had lost everything.
40 kilos in a month.
Yeah, everything. So I had lost all of this, like, shield that was protecting me from what I thought
do you ever look back at the photos?
Yeah, all the time. Because to me, that was part of the work. For me, the death of the ego that was keeping me encaged in a mindset that wasn't really bringing me to a level of contentment, which would then result in happiness, was all wrapped up in this. And I had to understand that basically every single person who said this, and I still remember walking into a bar in a little village and someone shouting at the top of their voice, "Everyone stop!" And everyone stopped. And I was only 14 at the time. And somebody went, "There's a string just walked into the bar." And this is like a 30-year-old man, 40-year-old man. And I was like, and everyone turned around and looked at me and started laughing. And I went out and went back to my house and lifted weights in my house for like the rest of the night. Obsessed with the fact if I can put on muscle, that's not going to happen to me. So everything became wrapped up in my physical being, which then led into sport, which is also can be very high toxic and very self-driven. And it wasn't fulfilling me to the human I wanted to be. And even though I did sport we've not really even talked about sport today. It's been more about the mindset, which then can cover everything. And then I realized it's like, wow, I needed to lose that. And I held on to that my whole life. So when I came to go to the surgery and they told me we're going to cut the front of your neck open, we're going to cut into the vertebrae, we'll move them, go into the spinal cord, and at any point then you may die, you may not die, or all this stuff was going to happen. I was just like, what's going to happen to my shoulders and my legs and everything? You know, like I've worked all my life for these. And then I had a spinal stroke and was rushed back in for a second surgery. Then I woke up and couldn't move, and I had to rebuild my whole body just from lying on a bed, unable to really move in 2010, 2 years to the London Games. And I was just lying there, just a real mess, really. And that's when I realized that was like the real start of who am I as a human being? And am I strong enough as a human being to get through what is to come? And I remember bumping into somebody who was very spiritual, and they said to me, they took my hand and they looked at my hand and they said, you're going to have a lot of ill health. And I said, no, I've had my tumor, I'm fine now. And you're like, nah, your biggest battle's to come. And I just parked it. I was like, rubbish, nonsense, they don't know what they're talking about. And they were right. My biggest battle was to come, and it's still to come. And I realized I was like, wow, okay, this whole, whether it's free will or not free will or whatever it is that's playing out, I was like, okay, every time I've learned a lesson. So I looked at that photo and I posted the photo on my social medias at the time of me just in my hospital shorts with my little socks and this big, huge belly. And I was like, this is the real David. He's not the body carrying him. It's way more deeper. And that's based on his principles of who he is as a human being, not what you physically see.
So talk us through before the treatment. You were an athlete.
Yeah. Whole life, did sport, loved it. Didn't like the competing.
Why?
Because I realized those values they're not, like, I think I would have been good in a team sport.
Yeah.
Of like maybe just trying to get everyone going.
Tell everybody what your sport was.
So I've done a few. I started off playing shinty, which is a Scottish sport like ice hockey. Won Scottish Junior Championships in that sport. That led into doing golf, into winter skiing, water skiing, a whole host of stuff. I spent some time in the karate team, fought in Japan, Russia, South Africa. I have a black belt in karate, which led into some athletics. I sprinted 200, 400 and 100, which did a little time in the bobsleigh team, which led into a little bit of time on the British Olympic ski team, coaching with those guys, which then led into 6 years on the British rowing team, which then led into 7 years on the British cycling team, and then led into playing golf. So there's all of these things like unraveling. And the reason I just skipped through them all, because the one thing that's consistent is David, the human being, with all of those principles and values. That's the same. They've always been there. All I've done is just change the skills and change the tactics, because I realized that there's 3 things we can train in life: our body, our craft, and our mind. And if you train those 3 things, then you just shift the values and the principles. They're always the same. You just change whether it's a team sport, a solo sport, or wherever it may take you. And then I also realized that, look, sport is a great thing, but I wasn't saving lives. And I get, we in this country, we love the sport, we celebrate the sport. It's all about, yeah, this is great, you've won these medals, you've done all these things, and blah 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 blah. But I'm like I watch my surgeon, and I'm like, wow, what a man. I watch my nurse, my radiographer. I'm like, wow, like, you've chose to go in and save lives. That to me is incredible, and no one really celebrates it. You leave the hospital after a 16-hour shift, you sit on the tube, you go home, you might have a microwave meal, you get up the next day and you do it all again, and you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it for your whole life, and you don't get knighted for it really. No one puts you in the front page of a newspaper, no one's got you pinned to their wall, but you have chose a career that's about trying to make the world a better place. And we don't pause to celebrate that. And the only time we did is when you were working through COVID and we all clapped at our front door. and then went back into our houses while you were lying sleeping on a hospital floor. And yet we all just go back into human doings, and we don't really stop and pause and go, that's incredible. That's genuinely incredible. But yet we celebrate all the success and the fastings and X Factor and all of these people who are just normal human beings. And then they become a bit famous at something, and all of a sudden they're like, wow, they're like, we've got to listen to everything they say. So I think sport played a huge part in who I am. I always lived by the philosophy that sport gave me the mindset and the body to deal with cancer and paralysis, but cancer and paralysis taught me how to live. And I really, like, I do a lot of work with young athletes, and I really love it. I'm like, yeah, you know what, you need to go into this, and you do it, but make sure you know your self-awareness, making sure you know what your principles are, make sure you also know that there's a time frame to this, because I've met a lot of sports people who weren't that nice, and they are just so full of themselves. For whatever reason, they probably have some trauma in there, and they've got a whole host of things going on. And I sit and listen, and I look and think, what a shame, man. You were super good at that, but now that's gone. Who are you now? And are you just living off of something you were good at before? And if so, that's kind of sad, because you're missing the real beauty of life about being the human being.
Maybe some of them will listen to this.
Maybe, hopefully.
And that mirror will be held up.
Yeah, hopefully. And then also know that not everyone will, and that's also okay. And I've kind of got to a point now where when I was at home in Scotland, I was going around to all my friends' kids going, right, what's your vision? What's your goal? And then I had to be like, David, just chill out, man, because not everyone's going to be on that bus. And that's also okay. And for me, that's quite hard, because I know how vulnerable this journey is. And I'm thinking, wow, I don't want you to get to the final breaths and go, God, man, I should have listened to that guy, David. And I think back now to one of my very first conversations around this stuff, and it was in Sydney in 2000. Some guy gave me a green juice, and he said, you'll be drinking these probably in about 20, 30 years from now. And I thought, well, a lot of rubbish. And right enough, I drink a green juice every day. And I think back to that guy, his name was Owen, and I think back thinking,
how did he know?
How did he know I was going to drink green juices? But I just was like, wow.
It's like the guy that was reading your palms.
Yeah. I was like, all these things are happening all the time. And because we're human doings, we never pause just to be in the moment.
Have you developed a sort of a stoic mentality?
Yeah.
Have you studied Stoicism?
Yeah, I've read it, and I've done some courses on it and read it. Yeah.
Which, minus any scientific words or anything, it's controlling highs and lows. It's homeostasis. It's whatever. The only pain in life is resisting what is.
Yeah.
Let's go with it. Let's be present.
Be present.
Not too many big highs, not too many big lows. A really sort of controlled emotional state.
Yeah.
Is that part of your daily ritual?
Yeah, I think so. I think back now when you ask me that question, what is my routines? What have I done in life to change? And I'll be like, well, nothing. I just got here. But actually, that's not true. I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of therapy. I've listened to hours and hours of audio books, podcasts, everything, to try and be like, how can I be a better person? So when my last breath comes, I can sit and just go, I had a great life. Did wrong things, did great things, had an experience, woke up hungover, don't drink anymore, did all of these different things, traveled the world, met all these different people. I want to help more people. I genuinely try to sit and think, how can I help more people? What can I do to help more people? And I'm like, well, okay, I really want to do that. But I think along the whole way, I listened to all Marcus Aurelius, Plato, Socrates, all of this. And I'm like, okay, I think if I'm in a good place with all those chairs and the passions and the four legs, I think I can make a difference to everybody.
Talk us through the four legs again.
So being in nature is my first one. Being surrounded by plants, greens, animals, just that whole movement of nature and what nature means, and then unraveling all of that. Well, what is all of that? Then doing some form of sport and movement, because that's what I love to do. That's my passion. And then being around people, good people. It doesn't have to be friends. It can be new friends, old friends, just being around people and seeing people thrive and having good conversations, and then feeling like I'm making a difference to everybody I meet. And then I'm thinking, okay, that's my four legs. And then that's based on my principles. And then I can put all the stuff on the chair and I can hold.
What's your message to families and leaders?
I think for families is build relationships based on trust, education, and love. I think that's like a really nice mix. I remember asking a footballer once at a conference he was at, and he alluded to his children, and I said, that's really impressive. I said, what did you give them? And he's like, trust, love, and education. I rolled the dice, and I rolled it with those values, and every one of his kids went to university and did very well. And I thought, wow, that's super impressive. And then for leaders, I think again, it's tune into your self-awareness, find out what drives you, who you are as the human being, and ultimately, who are you when you're at your best, and who are you at your worst, and how far apart are those differences. And I think that it's really easy to be amazing when everything's going great, right? And you've got all your four legs of your chair, but who are you when all the four legs of the chair are gone? You're dehydrated, you've not been sleeping well, you're pressured through the roof. Who are you at that point? And I've seen that across 15 years of hospital. I've seen the CEO waking up who's losing it, who can't control his emotions, and he's just losing it. And I've seen other people wake up and be like, okay, this is potentially my last breath. And I experienced that. The most powerful was my last surgery. I came into the neurosurgical ward in Queen Square in London, and I walked into the ward, and there was a guy sitting opposite me and a guy in the bed next to me. Two different characters. It was like a Jean-Paul Sartre play of Can't Escape. And I formed a bond with the person in the bed next to me. I couldn't see them, we just formed. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was like, oh, please go to sleep, because he was keeping me awake. And I was like, it was agitating. In the morning, the first thing he would do is, oh, David, I'm so sorry for keeping you awake. I was like, Roberto, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. How are you? And he couldn't really speak, and he was paralyzed. He had cancer in his spine, his lungs. He was in a really bad way. And then after about day 5, the doctors were chatting to him, and they said that there's 4 options. And option number 4 is that we just don't keep you alive anymore. And he was 54. And he'd been an actor, he'd been in Downton Abbey, Game of Thrones and everything. He's like, I want number 4. And then the nurse said, well, let's prepare for end of life. And at that point, I was reading a philosophy book, and the philosophy book said, what if we didn't measure life in time, but we measured it in experiences? Basically meaning if you have a fixed mindset and you leave the house every day, you only live one day. And you might live 90 years, but you only live one day. Where if you have an open mind, you might only live 40 years or 54 years, but you live a lifetime of experiences. And I was like, wow. And then what happened is I was like, I need to see Roberto. I hadn't seen him at this point. I'd only had one glance of his face. So I got on my Zimmer frame, and I got to the end of my bed as they were wheeling him out, and he just stopped. And he kind of looked at me, and I didn't know what to say. I was like, wow. And I just put my hand on my heart, and he was like, don't give up, David. Just don't give up. And then they wheeled him off. They came in, cleaned up all his thing, pulled his curtain back, took a brush or a cloth and just wiped his name off the board. And within 10 minutes, John was wheeled in with a brain tumour. There was another person in the bed, another story, another human being. And then the next day at lunchtime, the resus alarm went off. And then after lunch, the nurse came in and just said, I just want to let you guys know that Roberto passed away. And I was like, wow, he didn't even live an extra day. And that was it. And Roberto's gone. And I was like, wow, that's life. And then the next comes, and then the next comes, and then the next comes. And I was like, wow, that's heavy.
But let's turn that into inspiration, though, for the listeners right now. Yeah. This is really important.
Yeah.
Because the perspective can change everything.
Yes. Huge.
And it is appreciation. What's been your hardest lesson to learn?
I think going from that story, my therapist asked me, would you want Roberto to suffer? And I said no. So he's no longer suffering, and he lived a life based on his values, and he got control to say, you know what? I've lived. I don't want to live anymore. I've lived a life. And I thought that was beautiful. I think my hardest lesson, and it didn't hit me at the time, because I'm paralyzed by mistake. So a hospital paralyzed me in one of my surgeries in 2016. And I spent 8 weeks on a neurological ward. And then I was transferred to Stoke Mandeville. And I remember getting transferred to Stoke Mandeville. I'll never forget, they put me in the wheelchair, wheeling me out of the hospital, breathing fresh air. First time I seen a bird again. And I was just like, whoa, this is like overload. They took me to Stoke Mandeville. They pushed me into a ward. And then they left me on a bed. And this doctor and medical team came around and they stroked me with cotton wool, punched me with needles, and then he just went, okay, you're a incomplete C2 Asia D. Well, someone will be round in a minute to explain what that really means to you. And I was like, huh? What? So I had become this number. It's like being in prison. What are you in for? And every time I met someone, they would say, are you incomplete or complete? Well, I'm incomplete. Whereabouts are you incomplete? Oh, right, so you may move. You may move. And I'm like, well, I hope I'm going to move. And that didn't really sink in at that point, and that was 2016. It's kind of sunk in now that I have a spinal cord injury. And
How long did it take to sink in then? Years?
Quite a long time, because I was living with this hope, and that's where I guess it could be a little bit dangerous, because I knew there was eventually going to be a fall, and the fall came, and I had therapy and coaching and got myself through it. But I was like, wow, I was like, yeah, this is my body now. But that's when I also realized that I am more than the physical specimen that's carrying me. That's just what's carrying me, but that's not who I am. And I think in this world now, we attach so much of who we are to what we've done, what car we have, what street you live. You see it every time someone says, where do you live? Oh, I live in London. Whereabouts in London? Oh, central London. But whereabouts in central London? Well, I live here. But what street? Because they're trying to fathom out who you are. And I think this is mental. I'm like, this is all crazy. This is just nonsense. Like, you should be asking about what books I read, what I like, who am I as a person. So I think that was the hardest point in my life, which has been the gift that's never stopped giving. Because for 24 hours a day, I have a spinal cord injury. And I could choose to be completely defined by that. Or I could say, well, actually,
I'm defined by being a human being.
Exactly.
And being where my feet are.
Yeah.
I've got my 4 legs. It's pretty powerful stuff, this. Last point. Mm-hmm. Self-awareness. I want to go back there.
Yeah.
I want to get all of the listeners on the front foot as to why this is the most important thing for them as leaders, them as human beings moving forward, and sort of pass your legacy on to them. Mm-hmm. Self-awareness. Why does it matter so much?
Because everything in life is about relationships, and you can't have a relationship with another human if you don't have a relationship with yourself. And the first point of having a relationship with yourself is being able to sit and go into yourself and think, who am I as a human being? What drives me? What's my principles? What's my motivators? What do I wake up in the morning? What do I do? Do I go straight into human doing mode? Or can I stop in bed, connect to my breath, inhale, exhale, and be like, I am so grateful and so blessed that I've woken up today. Put my feet on the floor and go, wow, I'm so lucky to have 2 feet, and stand up and go, that is beautiful. Do all my morning routine, make my coffee, and actually think about the farmers who picked the coffee bean. Smell it before I make it. Be like, wow, somebody put their whole life into picking that bean, which then went to somewhere else, to somewhere else, to somewhere else, to somewhere else, into my cup, which is going to give me a moment of just beautiful taste of a bean, which is then going to give me some energy to go into the world and live out my principles.
That's awareness.
That's awareness.
That's the opposite of blissful ignorance.
Yeah. And I figured if we could attach to that, and we don't always get it right. That's the beauty of life, right? We make mistakes and we learn, and that's the super important thing with mistakes. We learn from our mistakes. I don't learn from the things that went well. I learned about the surgery that went wrong, and that's a big lesson.
Are you bitter?
No, not at all.
Were you bitter?
You know what? I wasn't, and I thought I might have been.
Did you have to, at any point, forgive psychologically? to let go?
I did, because I know he didn't do it deliberately. I know he didn't come to work that day and say, I'm going to paralyze this guy.
Of course he did.
He didn't do that. And we never really had a conversation after it. And if I met him today, I'd be like, look, I know you didn't do it. I know you didn't come to work that day and paralyze me. But the actions and your level of self-awareness and your actions of all of my case led to my paralysis. That's kind of not acceptable, because if everyone in the medical world went like that, then we'd all be paralyzed and we'd all have issues. So someone has to be accountable for those decisions. And so I've forgiven him on a humanistic sort of compassionate sense, but he's never apologized. He's never wrote to me. He's never emailed me. He just basically just cut me out of his life completely. And I was the very last surgery that he ever did. So I'm like, wow, it would have been nice for you to come to me, but then that explains more about him as a human being, not about me. So I'm like, well, okay, I'll take it. I'll move on with life, and I'll use the lessons from that to try and increase everybody's self-awareness, to know that, okay, you took a code of conduct which was about trying to preserve life, and for whatever reason it didn't work out in that instance. What have I learned about that, and how can I be a good leader to then pass on that information to other people, knowing that there'll be more mistakes made in the future, but how can you make a mistake with compassion and be able to look someone in the eye and say, look, that didn't go to plan and I'm sorry. And I think for leaders, it's diving into that self-awareness. And you might not always like what you see. And you might not always be like, well, hey, I don't really like that value. That's not a great one, but it may serve me well at some point in my life if I know how to serve it. And I think people who are listening to podcasts and reading books, they're already on the journey. It's how do we reach the people who are not listening to these things?
Get everybody listening to share it on.
Listening to
for
share
all
it
the
on.
right reasons.
Yeah.
Enroll and inspire. You know, my favourite thing about this podcast has been perspective. I've just been with somebody that says this: when I got cancer, I became a human being. You listen to this podcast and you're going to become a human being. That is for sure. Not only that, you're going to develop a sense of self-awareness, which is significantly important in your future. For everyone, we're in an intelligence age, and the future depends on your level of self-awareness. Your future as a human being depends on that thing. The other thing that I've got to mention is optimism. I mean, I've become optimistic just by hanging around with this man over here. Courage, curiosity, compassion, optimism. In your household, with your family, with your friends, wherever you are, be where your feet are. That's been my favourite part. What's been your favourite part?
All of it. All of it. Sitting down, pausing, no technology, even though we're surrounded by cameras, and just having a nice moving conversation that's confirmed to me that I'm on the right path, where whatever I'm doing is like, okay, this is the right path for David.
Yeah, you for sure are on that path. You've just helped us get on it as well, by the way. You've helped us become better human beings. That's the big takeaway from today. Become a better human being. Don't wait to be diagnosed by cancer to become a better human being. Listen to this podcast and share it with as many people as you can in the company of the great David Smith, and become a better human being.
Just be a better human being.
Be where your feet are. And maybe develop the 4 legs on your own chair as well.
Yeah, know your 4 legs.
Know your 4 legs and sit on that chair with pride and energy. David Smith, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Amazing. You're an amazing man.
Thank you.